Welcome to Stillspeakpod. I just wrapped up recording a video update on the story we discussed last week about the little girl Lena who is missing from San Antonio, Texas, and then a long update on Harmony Montgomery, who's been missing for the last 2 years, but we just found out about it recently in New Hampshire. And in that video, I was going to do the 2 updates and then talk to you about another story, a little girl named Oakley Carlson. But if you've been around here for a while, you know that I like to get off on little tangents and rambles, and my update on Harmony went a lot longer than I was planning on it being. And so it ran too long that I couldn't start on Oakley there, or it would have taken forever for it to upload onto YouTube. So let's talk about Oakley Carlson, 5 years old. Oakley was last seen in Grays Harbor County, just outside of Oakville, Washington. The exact date of her disappearance is unknown. Yeah, it's another one of those, okay? She was actually discovered to be missing when a concerned neighbor requested a welfare check on her on December 6th of 2021. And she is beautiful. This little girl is beautiful. And so let's discuss this. Oakley's sister, who is 6, went to a sleepover at the home of her school principal, whose daughter she is friends with. And while she was there at this sleepover, she said that Oakley was, quote, no more, unquote. And she also told people at this slumber party that there was no Oakley. So after hearing this, the principal contacted the authorities and requested a welfare check. She was the concerned neighbor. The principal said that she had not seen Oakley in a long time and that she had been trying to get answers on her whereabouts from the parents. But every time she asked them, they gave a different excuse to explain Oakley's absence. So, of course, when she hears Oakley's sister refer to Oakley as no more, or that there is no Oakley, this raised massive concern, and she called it in. Jordan Bowers and Andrew Carlson of Oakville near Olympia were arrested on the same day their daughter Oakley was reported missing. And Jordan and Andrew so far were charged with possible manslaughter, but we're going to get to that because those charges were later dropped. But they were booked into the Grays Harbor County Jail on charges of abandonment of a dependent person stemming from their alleged mistreatment of their other daughter. According to a local sheriff's office, the parents had been withholding a prescription medication from their 6-year-old daughter who is blind for the past 15 months, and this medication is necessary for her physical well-being and puts her at risk for physical impairment and could result in death. Now, I want to talk about that for a brief second, okay? Because they never specify anywhere that I've seen what medication this was. And I'm definitely not going to defend these parents by any means at all. But, for example, I have friends who have children with a seizure disorder, and they were prescribed medication okay? And they decided, because it's their child and they know their child best, to do as much research as they could to where they can find a more natural way to treat seizures rather than to give the medication. Now, is that for everybody? Does everybody agree with that? No, of course they don't, because everybody parents differently, okay? And it is what it is. And a lot of parents have actually turned to CBD oil to help with seizures and have had great success. So they weaned off of the medication onto this CBD oil, and it has been life-changing for their child. And I know many parents who have actually done this. And so when I heard this, I'm like, well, you know, doctors aren't gods, okay? And, you know, some parents do like to research and use other things to treat their children. And as long as it's not harmful in any way, they should have the right to do that. That being said, okay, from what it sounds to me, it was really necessary medication. Like, it was medication she really, really needed, or she could eventually die from it. So that's very alarming, and I'm very curious what that medication was, and we may find out more from court documents. And if I somehow missed what that medication was and somebody has it, I'd be really, really thankful if you would let me know. But I looked and couldn't find it. But I did want to mention that, you know, sometimes parents do choose to do other things for their child, you know, against doctors' wishes. And it just depends on the circumstance, what the child's condition is, etc. Now, my dog, we adopted him, and he has seizures, and they gave me medication for him. Now, this is just a dog. This isn't a human being. But I was noticing with the medication, he was having a lot. Oop, we have a ding. A lot of seizures. And it felt like every time I gave him the pill, he had a seizure. So I looked into, personally, CBD oil for dogs, and I gave that to him instead. And I'm not kidding with you. His seizures went from like every other day to now like once every, I don't even know, 4, 5, 6 months. It's significant. And if he's in the middle of a seizure and I give him the CBD oil on his tongue, he immediately pops up and is fine. I'm not even kidding. It's like a miracle. I can't even believe it, because when he was having the seizures on the medication, after his seizure was done, he would spend the next 24 to 48 hours not moving. I'd have to bring him his food and water, okay, because it just beat him up so badly. So it's amazing. It's a huge change in him. Again, this is a dog. I consulted the vet. I'm not giving you dog vet advice here. I'm just saying that CBD oil does work for some people and some dogs. Okay? And it just happened to work for my dog. And I had to wonder if this had something to do with her being blind, because they mentioned that. They said that this medication was for the 6-year-old daughter who is blind, and that she hadn't been giving this medication for 15 months, and that it was necessary for her physical well-being and put her at risk for physical impairment and could eventually result in death. It sounded to me like it was possibly connected to her being blind, or it really could be that it is seizures. I'm not quite sure, as I said. Regardless, they were charged for that and were arrested the day that Oakley had been filed as missing. But let's backtrack here, okay? Because Oakley, like Harmony, had been in foster homes as well. Now, Harmony, it sounds like, was in several foster homes, whereas Oakley appears to have only been in one. So she was sent in August of 2017 to live with foster parents named Eric and Jamie Jo Hiles. Oakley's foster mom said that there were multiple red flags while the child was in her care. And it does appear she was there for quite a while. She was a couple of months old until she was 4. And then in October of 2009, about a little over 2 years later, they did end up, actually, you know what? They were with her August. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. So 2.5 years they had her. 2.5 years. And then in November of 2019, she was returned to the biological parents. Again, their names are Andrew Carlson and Jordan Bowers. Now, a year later, around Christmas, Oakley went to her grandparents' home for Christmas. And the grandmother, which appears to be Jordan's mother, said that Oakley did not look well. And according to the court documents, she had dark circles under her eyes, pale skin, and that she had scratches and sores on her face. And the grandmother decided to call CPS after seeing her. And bravo to Grandma, because I am sure that was not an easy thing to decide to do and then to actually do it. To go against your own child to protect your grandchild. So bravo, Grandma. That's what you're supposed to do. I am sure that was really hard for you to do, but props, massive, massive props. And she said that after she called, that she never heard anything about it after that, which goes back to what I said in Harmony's videos, that the people I know who have called CPS or DCF or DCYF, etc., to put in a claim, they never hear anything back. It doesn't mean that they didn't investigate. It just means that they're not privy to what was found. So it doesn't surprise me that she didn't hear back. So Grandma says that obviously once it was found out that she had contacted CPS regarding Oakley, this, caused a massive issue within the family. And that Oakley's parents, one of which would include her daughter, had not spoken or seen them since then. So she had not seen Oakley since Christmas of 2020. Now, police are saying that February 10th of 2021, Oakley was last seen alive by someone associated with the family. Prior to this person coming forth, police were thinking that the last time she was actually seen by anybody besides her parents was January 27th. So this person pushed it up a little bit further by saying that it was February 10th that they last saw her alive. Now, fast forward from February to November 6th. So this was just 2.5 months ago. Andrew, Oakley's father, called dispatch about 5 p.m. to report a fire at their home. And he told them that his daughter, now he has several daughters, used a cigarette lighter and caught the couch on fire, and that he had put the fire out himself. He said that it had been spreading through the top floor, and And he said that he just wanted to report it, but that he didn't need their assistance. A response wasn't needed. So this is really interesting to me. Okay, this is the first time I actually heard of this. Because somebody called the fire department and says, hey, my kid lit the couch on fire. Which, with a lighter? Okay. Now, she's 5, okay? I've had 3 5-year-olds. One's currently 5 in my household. None of them have to use a lighter at all, okay? My youngest actually likes, if it's around his birthday, leading up to his birthday, he'll make us light a lighter so that we can pretend or practice to sing happy birthday, and then he blows it out. Okay? And he doesn't know how to do that himself. He makes us do that. So it's interesting that he calls the fire department to report this, okay, probably so they wouldn't respond. And then he says, oh, we don't need you to come. We got the fire under control. And what's kind of surprising to me is that the fire department's just like, oh, okay, you got it? All right, thanks for calling, bye. And that they didn't go there to investigate and make sure that he really had it under control. Because think about it, he has neighbors, and if he didn't have it under control, it would be a danger to the neighbors. So I'm like, wait, what? So the fire department didn't come? They didn't come because you told them not to come? And they just oh, okay, we're not going to come? I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought it was an automatic, we're coming to make sure that you really do have it out, because you don't know what the hell you're doing because you're not a fireman, right? But I guess not. But then at some point, it sounds like fire investigators did go there, but they found that this fire started from the microwave on the kitchen counter. Which my mind went to a really bad place when I heard this. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that at all. Because, we've heard horrific stories of people putting babies in freaking ovens and dryers. And I was just imagining the worst. And then I was like, no, it can't be that. She's 5. There's no way they could have put her in the damn microwave. Chris, come on. What are you saying? So, but it's possible, right? It's possible. I don't know. Because why are they blaming Oakley for this fire if it started in the microwave? Because apparently Jordan, the mother, had told other people also that Oakley had started this fire, and that her and the husband had been, fighting about this fire for 4 hours. So both parents were looking to blame Oakley for this fire. But then later, investigators go and look, and they're like, well, no, it didn't start with a couch and a lighter. It started in the freaking microwave. And this is important, and why my mind went there. Because that was on November 6th, and the parents are now claiming that the last time they saw their child was November 30th. Yeah. 24 days later is their claim, okay? So it was really hard for me not to think that way. I didn't want to imagine such a horrific thing, but my mind did go there, because why are they blaming poor Oakley? And then I had to wonder, was this microwave set on fire on purpose to cause damage, to cover up something, and really they didn't last see her November 30th, but they actually did see her around the time of this fire, and something happened to her then, and they were just trying to cover their tracks? I don't know. So now, 4 days after this fire, that principal, Jessica Swift, okay, this is before she reported her missing, okay, or called for a welfare check. She actually went to their home to bring them supplies after this fire, and she stayed at the house for 45 minutes. And she asked about Oakley, and she was told that Oakley was in her room the entire time she was there. And this is also fascinating because he's like, oh, she set the couch on fire, but don't worry, I got it. And meanwhile, the fire had to be severe enough that the family actually needed supplies from the fire. So it was obviously a bigger fire than Andrew made it seem. 2 weeks after that, she went back to the home to drop off more supplies. And she did see the other 3 children, but again, not Oakley. December 4th is when the playdate and sleepover occurred. And that's when she said that, Oakley is no more. When the principal, was kind of trying to get information out of the sister and kind of prying, that is when the sister then said that Oakley went to live with her foster parents that she had lived with before. And law enforcement obviously looked into this and confirmed that she was not with the foster parents or in foster care at all. So then on the 5th is when she calls in this welfare check this past December. And then on December 6th, the Tumwater Police Department conducted a welfare check at a hotel that the family had been staying at after this fire. Okay? And when they got there, Oakley was not at the hotel. And that Andrew Carlson, the father, said that Oakley was with his parents, but he also said that he didn't know his father's phone number and he couldn't remember the address of his father's home. So, of course, the officers are like, because, you make your daughter go and stay with your father, but you don't know where he lives or what his phone number is? Yeah, okay, bro. Okay. So officers reached out to Andrew's father, who says, I haven't seen Oakley since December 2020. So officers, said that Andrew didn't even seem surprised that Oakley wasn't with his parents when they told him, hey, your daughter's not with your parents. He didn't seem surprised at all. So they start talking to Jordan, the mother, and she became very angry and uncooperative, and she refused to answer further questions, and she went back into the hotel room. And after officers left the hotel, Andrew Carlson called dispatch to report Oakley missing. Yeah, that's what he did. Meanwhile, officers, their red flags are like, ooh, their spidey senses and shit. They're like, okay, we have an issue here, okay? Because principal lady is saying she hasn't seen this kid. She's been trying to see this kid forever. She hasn't seen this kid. The siblings saying this. The family's living in a freaking hotel room. They have this fire. We go there. Child's not there. He says he's with his father, but he doesn't know the phone number. He doesn't know the address. We find the father. We call the father. The father's like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't have my grandchild. I haven't seen her in almost a freaking year. Right? So what do? They go to the family home, the one that had the fire. And they drafted a search warrant, and it got approved. And during the search of the home, toys and clothes were located for all of the children except for Oakley. They also found blood on blinds and the front door, as well as a handprint on the wall in the downstairs hallway. Heartbreaking. When Oakley's parents were questioned another time by law enforcement, the mother again became uncooperative, so much so that she was arrested for obstructing an investigation. God, these stories, man, they're so just, I don't understand. Are you a parent? Are you? If you're listening, my kids are my whole world. My whole world. Everything I do, every freaking thing I do is for my kids. Everything. I will never, ever, ever understand these people that do this to their own children. I'll never get it. So they start questioning Andrew again, and he starts, making statements to the effect of Oakley being dead or not coming back for a reunion, weird stuff. And so then, he was also arrested for obstruction of law enforcement, and they were initially charged with first-degree manslaughter. Now, the next day, they continued searching the family property. And the Grays Harbor County Sheriff's Office posted on Facebook asking for the public's help in locating Oakley. And they were searching the areas around the property, and they looked up to 300 acres in the area. They had a tent set up in the yard, and they were digging and all of that. And on December 9th, the sheriff's office announced that Jordan and Andrew were facing charges of abandonment of a dependent person in the second degree after investigators discovered evidence that the parents had not been providing medication prescribed to their other daughter for 15 months. Again, this medication was necessary for the 6-year-old's health. And at this point, the parents were no longer being held on the charge of first-degree manslaughter. And I can only assume at that point that they just didn't have enough to back that charge, right? That they got them on that, but ultimately they had to drop that while they continued to investigate. Because what a lot of people don't know is that you only have a certain amount of time after someone's arrested to be ready to go to trial, okay, or your hearings. And they might have been thinking, we need more time, and we don't want to put ourselves in a corner to not be ready when we need to be. So it doesn't mean that they won't be charged with that down the road. I think just at that time, they ultimately decide to, abandon that charge for the time being. By December 13th, a week later, they were done searching the family home and property. On December 15th, the grandparents who, officers say are being helpful with the investigation, this would be the Carlson family, so Andrew's family, said, quote, "The Carlson family have been and continue to be fully cooperating with this investigation. Our only objective is to find our granddaughter Oakley. We're praying that Oakley will be found soon, and also for the multitude of good people working around the clock to make that happen. We ask that the media respect our privacy during this very difficult time, and we do not wish to make any further statement for now. Thank you," unquote. On December 30th, Andrew and Jordan appeared in court, and a judge found probable cause for one count of abandonment of a dependent person in the second degree against them both. Bail was set at $150,000, and they were expected to be back in court for their arraignment on January 10th. And the abandonment charge is unrelated to the investigation into the disappearance of Oakley. And on January 10th, Andrew appeared before the court again. He entered a not guilty plea on the abandonment charge related to the sibling, And Jordan was scheduled to be arraigned in the afternoon. A trial date of April 19th was scheduled, and it's supposed to last about 4 days. And they actually joined Andrew and Jordan, their cases together, so the parents will be on trial at the same time. And we recently seen that with the Michigan shooter's parents, the kid that, I think his name is Ethan Crumbly. His parents were arrested after he shot up a school, and we recently have seen them in hearings appearing together. And basically they are looking at about 5 years in prison. And a $10,000 fine, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but something tells me they're going to be getting other charges and they're not going anywhere as this investigation goes forth. I forgot to mention that after the house fire, they actually set up a GoFundMe calling for donations for this house fire. And police are saying that they have no way of knowing at this point if Oakley was alive before or after that house fire, because the last time anybody has claimed to have seen her was back in February, besides the parents who are claiming they last saw her the end of November, which is really kind of interesting because they're like, oh, we last saw her on November 30th. And it's like, okay, well, where did she go after that? And obviously they're not answering that. But why would you say November 30th when clearly you don't know where the hell your child is? Like, why would you even say November 30th? That doesn't even make sense. Why didn't you say, oh, we saw her yesterday? So crazy. Oh my God. And Jordan, the mom, when she was being interviewed, they described her as like really angry. Oh my Lord, what was that? Angry and yelling and clenching her fist. Like, what the hell? What are you doing? Okay. And that's when she claimed that she last saw her daughter alive on November 30th, but that they couldn't say where the child was now. During a forensic interview with a child advocate, the same 6-year-old daughter allegedly said that her mother, Jordan, had told her not to talk about Oakley. And then she said, quote, she had gone out into the woods and had been eaten by wolves, unquote. And she was trying to say that her mother told her that Oakley had went out into the woods and got eaten by wolves. That poor little girl. The sister, I feel terribly for her. Oakley's 9-year-old brother told the child advocate that their mother would put Oakley in the closet, sometimes under a stairwell, and they would beat Oakley with a belt, and that he was worried about her starving. And that's a 9-year-old saying that. A 9-year-old saying that he was worried that his 5-year-old sister was going to starve. These poor kids. My God. So this is yet another child who's been missing for God knows how freaking long, who wasn't reported missing by anybody, and it took a while for people to start going, okay, what the hell's going on here? Thank God for this principal who was really adamant about trying to see Oakley, and every time she tried to, she was never there, or the parents had an excuse. And thank God she had this sleepover and heard the sisters making these statements, and that she was obviously proactive because, I mean, she's a principal and she's a mandated reporter, and she was already concerned about Oakley anyway. So thank God for her, okay? Thank God. And it kind of reminds me of the Millers who are in the Harmony story which are the adoptive parents of Jameson, which is Harmony's little brother. And it was them who was really trying to get in contact with Harmony and trying to go through Crystal to find her so that Jameson and Harmony can have this relationship. So thank God for the Millers for really pushing, wanting to see Harmony. And in this story, the principal is basically just like the Millers. Somebody out there who's not a direct relative who had grave concern for a child. But this is now more children affected, more than just Oakley. She's got siblings. I mean, the 9-year-old talking about worrying that his 5-year-old sister was going to be starved. Seeing her being beat with a belt. The 6-year-old being told, allegedly, that her sister had went out into the woods and got eaten by wolves. Could you imagine what these children are going to have to mentally go through? Oh my gosh. This is awful. What the hell is going on? Sometimes in stories like this involving children, you notice a pattern that it's always one child that the parent seems to abuse. It's sometimes all of the children, right, that are being neglected or abused, and like some get it worse than the others. But I'm seeing a lot of recent stories where it was one child specifically who was mistreated the worst. And you always have to sit and wonder why. Like, why that one particular child? So she has these siblings, right? And it appears that she was the youngest, and usually the youngest is the baby of the family, and they get, the most attention. It's not intentional, but it just seems to happen. And here it is, she's getting beat with belts and locked in closets and starved, and now she's been missing and nobody even knows when the last time she was alive. Like, what the hell could this little girl have done to have deserved this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I know the answer to that. I'm just saying, why her? Like, was this also happening to the other children? Because I don't see any statements that were made by the children about what the parents were doing to them. At minimum, we know she wasn't giving the 6-year-old the medication, right? But I haven't seen any claims that they were abusing them or starving them, etc. And clearly they're not missing like Oakley is. I think we all know what the outcome of Oakley's story is, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. The 2 people she was supposed to be with claim they last saw their daughter on November 30th, and they're not giving any explanation of any kind to explain where the hell she went and why she's not with them any longer. Like, come on. We know what happened to Oakley, and she's beautiful. And her foster parents are devastated. They have spoken out, and they attended a protest, and the foster father held up a sign that said, "I should have been able to walk her down the aisle as her father," or something to that effect, which is really, really, really sad. I seen a picture, I'll put it in, of her with these foster parents who they seem to have had her for quite a while, and, had a very special bond with her. And sadly, they had to give her back. And that's the nature of the beast when you're fostering, and it's not easy. It's not for everybody. And this is what happens like a year and a half later. So you can imagine how they're feeling right now. They probably also feel devastated and just beside themselves to know that her fate ended up being this. When I was younger, I always used to say, once I have my own kids, then I'm going to at least foster one kid. The reason why I said this was because when I was younger, in middle school, I had a friend who was in foster care. And he had a rough life. He was in and out of foster care like all the time. And as a result of that, he's got a lot of issues. Even now, 25 years later from being in middle school, I see him on Facebook and he still has a plethora of issues that all stem from his in and out of foster care experience. And he had a lot of great homes and he had a lot of bad homes. And as a young teen, I saw that and I thought to myself, I want to be a foster parent one day and stop these children from going into bad foster homes. As I've aged and as I've had my 3 children, and the more that I've learned about the system and about foster care, I don't think that I can do it. I don't. And I know that. And it's better that I know that. Because that's some hard stuff when you are a foster parent. To take in somebody else's child, to love them, to care for them, to deal with their trauma that they've been through, only to invest all of yourself into that child and wanting to help that child, and for them to get a phone call that you now have to give that child back to their parent. That's some tough stuff, and that's not for weak people by any means. And you have to be really dedicated, really passionate, and God bless good foster homes, because that's some tough shit to do. And to do that, and have this massive heart and dedication and passion, and then to give this child back, and to find out that she's missing and nobody knows for how long, and that she's most not likely, alive anymore. How heartbreaking is that? Think about it. It's just awful. And it's not the first time that's happened. There was a story, and I actually pulled it up before I went to record this, so let me see if I can grab it for you. But it happened a few years back. And basically this little boy went into a foster home, and he seemed very, very loved based upon the pictures. And ultimately he was reunited with his mother. Not long after that at all, it was only like a few months or less than a year later, the mother claimed that, she was in the car and somebody knocked her out and took her kid. And make a long story short, she was full of shit. She hit the child so hard, which caused him to have seizures. And then she drove the child and abandoned him in the woods to die. He was young, only like 2 or 3 months old. And the mother was pregnant at the time. And the foster parents were devastated. So devastated. And they were really vocal about, him going back to her only to end up being killed by her. And when she was arrested, she finally admitted to killing him. And she gave birth to a daughter not long after being arrested. And those same foster parents, think about how amazing these people are. Oh my God. These same foster parents, despite the fact that this woman took her child back and killed him, they wanted her daughter, because they knew she was going to be in jail and they wanted to feel a connection or a closeness to the sibling that they lost, the little boy. They wanted to adopt the daughter, Serenity. And they hit some hiccups, but ultimately they did adopt her, which is an amazing ending to the story, right? Because they lost this beautiful little boy and were so heartbroken, but they were able to have a piece of him by being able to adopt fully, not just foster, but adopt fully his sister. So it was one of those really bittersweet stories. But think about those foster parents and what they went through. Unbelievable. I am not ashamed to admit that I don't have that ability in my life. I don't. I had good intentions as a teenager, but now as an adult, I just know that I couldn't mentally, emotionally handle that. It would be crushing to me. And really difficult stuff, because I could not even begin to freaking imagine what would it be like to dedicate so much into a child and to love that child as your own, to only have to give it back to somebody and for something horrific to happen to them. So now we fast forward a few years, and here's another story that we're hearing about where this child was safe and loved and cared for with this beautiful couple, only to be given back to her parents and end up dead. Or whatever. She's most likely deceased, because they're not giving any explanation as to where she is. They're not even really saying she's missing, right? She's dead. So another horrible story that I had to bring to you this evening, because even though we know what the outcome most likely is here, Oakley's story matters. She matters. And she still needs to be found one way or another, right? And so we need to spread it. Her face, her name, someone out there may have seen her, may have seen something they don't even know they saw. And we need to bring awareness to her case so that she could be laid to rest properly and allow for closure for the grandparents of Oakley and her siblings. Before I end this, I did see that there are updates about the Murdaugh case. So I'm going to be collecting those, because now that the new year is gone, courts are back in session, everything's back to normal. And so there were developments with that story. And so I'm going to collect that, and that may be my next video. In the meantime, I'm still working on doing a condensed version of my Summer Wells story, but I was greatly distracted by all the drama that's happening involving Summer Wells' case. And in my condensed version, I definitely plan on discussing it, because this past weekend was a total shit show involving Summer Wells' case. In addition to that, there was, right before I came on here to record, an update in the Gabby Petito case. And I'm going to say this briefly, because I don't want to take too much attention off of Oakley's story. But if you recall, in the Gabby Petito case, if you followed it, Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito were stopped in Moab, Utah on August 12th. And there was a domestic incident. And ultimately, they said that Gabby was the aggressor and that, Brian was the victim. A lot of people, including myself, said, oh my God, the video definitely shows that she was the victim, and that she was covering for him. And basically, due to the case's popularity, Moab Police Department and Graham County Sheriff's Department did, an internal investigation to basically go over what happened And there was a 99-page report that was released this evening discussing what they ultimately came to as far as what needs to be fixed, what was done wrong, what was done right, etc. I've only seen parts of it so far. I plan on reading all of the documents once we have that link. Once we do that, or I get that, I will do a video about that. I said that I would only come to you about Gabby Petito's case if there was something significant, and I would say that this report is huge and significant because she ended up going missing, quote unquote. Obviously, we now know she was deceased only 2 weeks later. Actually, it was about 16 days later. So this incident that they had was a massive turning point in that story. And so it needs to be discussed. And so that we can learn more about what happened there. So I don't know which one I'm going to do first. My condensed version of Summer Wells, my Murdaugh update, or my Gabby Petito update. And I have a few stories that I've found that I want to discuss, but those will probably come later after I do these 3 videos. I just can't make any promises on which one I'm going to do next or when I'm going to do it. I kind of want to leave myself open here. I don't really like to say, oh, I'm going to be back X day, because it always seems that I can't get back on X day. So I don't like to make those types of promises. But expect those, is what I would say, soon. Most likely, I will do Gabby Murdaugh condensed version of Summer. Yeah, it'll probably go like that. But I just have to kind of see how far I get and which one I'm up for discussing. So, until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.